Everyone, welcome to another episode of Tech Gala and today we have Orko with us. So काफी टाइम लो ये रहता है कि अगर हम स्टूडेंट हैं हम लोग स्टार्टअप नहीं कर सकते बिकॉज अपने पास इधर एक्सपीरियंस नहीं होता, नहीं तो अपने पास अपने को लगता है उतना स्किल सेट नहीं है कि वी कैन बिल्ड अ प्रोडक्ट दैट इज प्रोडक्शन रेडी. आज अपने साथ Orko, he is a third year at IIT Guwahati and he is also building his own startup Answer, and along that he is also an Answer India fellow and he also got backed by Polygon for his startup, and even he interned with Walmart. So that's a lot of things that Orko did, and we cannot actually talk about everything that he did. So let's keep the focus on his startup, how we build that, and let's hear from Orko. If you don't mind introducing yourself a bit.
Yeah. So hello everyone to all the viewers. I am Marka. I'm the co-founder and CPO at Ansnal, and IITN. I'm pursuing my BTech from IIT Guwahati. I'll say soon to be dropout as well, and passionate chess player, and all round nice guy. So let's see how it goes. I hope that throughout the interview you'll learn a lot of things which I particularly faced during my whole college life while building the startup and getting through the 0 to 1 stage, which is quite difficult in a startup, specifically for a person who is directly doing that out of a college. So I hope it will be a very good session for you guys.
Okay, and as you mentioned, building the thing from 0 to 1. That is, I guess Peter Thiel wrote in his book, right? Like building something new is more tough than scaling what is already going on. So
Yeah.
how do you do it? Like, and before that, if you don't mind, what is your startup all about? So if you can
Yeah.
just brief that. Suppose you can just think the audience to be someone who has no idea of blockchain. So if you can keep it as layman as possible, it might be of the best interest to everyone.
Yeah. So coming to what Ansnal does, before that, I'll like to highlight the importance. What is the importance of building a startup like Ansnal? So the domain in which we are operating is a Web3 security domain. So as you all might have heard about Web 1, when there was just text and hyperlinks in the web, that was the Web 1, when there was no images, no interaction happening. With Web 2, the interaction was solved through companies like Facebook coming in, where you can like, interact, comment. All those things are possible now in Web 2. But what is not possible in Web 2 and Web 1 was you cannot own that particular data, right? In Web 3, you are actually owning your piece of content. You are not allowing companies like Facebook or Instagram, they cannot manipulate the data they have, sell it to other people and earn from that, right? So if you see most of these big tech giants, they're earning by selling your data. We all know that, right? But we cannot do much about that. If we go through the guidelines they present, that you will see that you are actually checking those boxes that they can use their data. You cannot do anything about that. So Web 3 solves this issue, where it's a trustless environment. We do not depend on any one centralized server to store the data, so that resolves a lot of problems. First of all, there is no centralized point of failure. So if you see all the data, if in case of Facebook is stored in one place, and if it gets hacked by any chance, there's a huge possibility of a data loss, which we hear a lot of times. So Web3 solves this problem by saying that we will store this data in peer-to-peer networks, so that there will be clones of data in a number of places. So you cannot have one place hacked and down the whole system. So that is about Web 3. Now, what we are building is we are trying to secure the Web 3 space. So if you see the companies that are existing in the Web 3 space, this they are big private audit firms. So what they do is they hire these auditors. Auditors is like those who review these lines of code in case of Web 3. Now, how Web 2 is different from Web 3 is that in Web 2, when you write lines of code, they do not impact the money. So if you see in React, if you write a piece of code, so that is not directly linked to money, because money will be done through gateways like Stripe. They will manage the transaction part. But in Web 3, we have languages the Solidity, which makes sure that the lines of code actually influence the transactions. So if you say, I want to transact this money, you send this money from x number of ethers from one particular account to another particular account. So if your lines of code are not perfect, or they are not working in the way you actually want them to work, then your funds will be dried up. So that's the basic difference, if I say. And that's why security is a very important facet in this case, because if you are not writing the code correctly, and there is any loophole which an hacker can exploit, then your whole funds that you have, that will be drained. So what we come in is that if you see the whole landscape or the paradigm in which Web 3 security operates, is that this particular people hire a set of auditors and they do the auditing for you. Now, if you go by the hacker's mindset, any hacker you picturize is like a guy who sits in a black hoodie and in front of a computer, going it for a number of like trying to hack your code number of hours. So there has to be a big incentivization model. But if you see in this private audit firms, they are paid maybe 1 or 2 lakhs. So that is not enough incentivization for them. And what they do is that they do not actually show their name as well. So once the report is published, it will be by, let's say, done by X company. So these auditors are not getting the name, the fame, as well as the money they actually need to be incentivized enough to put in that efforts. So we all know, like, if you say that after a 1 month of work I'll be giving you 2 or 3 lakhs of rupees, so that will not incentivize me to give my extra efforts to find in more bugs so that I can have a reputation in the industry. So what we as a platform do, we help these auditors to create a profile with us. We list, so there are a lot of CTF platforms, which is kind of this CodeChef, Codeforces platforms. But so that is in Web3 security. To practice this, there's a lot of platforms there. We say that all the work you have done in those platforms, all the reports you have done, you come to us and build a whole profile with us, and you let the clients decide. So we do not decide for ourselves, okay, this audit will be done by these people, unlike this firm. So we say, you get to select this bunch of auditors. So because it's a high ticket industry where average audit goes for 2000 $3000, it's very, it's bare minimum in most cases. So we give the power to the clients. Or let's say you judge that which auditor, based on their past experiences, the framework they have worked on, the chains they have worked on, you get to choose the right set of auditors from a platform. So this is the discovery layer we have solved. That is a one problem. Then a lot of other problems as well as exist, like the transparency thing. So what happens in case of these firms currently in the industry is that they will, so you interact with the BDs, like business development team of these Web3 firms. So what the problem is that when the these hackers do not get to interact with the developers, so they do not understand the business logic always. So we know the, like, writing comments in the course is the best possible thing, but not always that is done right. So particularly when a hacker comes across a particular set of code and say he wants to know the exact explanation, what is the business logic, there's a lot of communication delay. So we are doing through collaborative workspace where we bring all these people and we facilitate very efficient communication. So these are the few problems we are solving. Basic problem is incentivization, transparency. That was the basic thing about Detect Box, which is the first product of Ansnal. So yeah, we can discuss more about that, but that is the basic problem that we solve in the industry.
Okay, so that's quite a lot of things that you guys are doing. So if I just, from whatever I heard, if I can just summarize on what I've understood is basically, uh, how what I know about Web3 is basically, it is like the front end and the smart contract, and the interaction is Web3. So you guys are working as a middleware between the two ends, right? Like one is the smart contracts and maybe one is the UI front end. So you guys are working as sort of a DevSecOps tool that is automatingly and checking security at the endpoints.
Yeah, so currently, like, as you said, like, there's a front end and there's a back end. The back end in case of Web3 is the blockchain, right? And the interaction is facilitated by the number of libraries like Web3.js, EtherJS. Now, what we are doing is, when you see the back end, so there are contracts which make sure that certain functions are operating in a way that it should be, right? So we are operating that these functions or these contracts are operating the way you actually want. So this is proofreading and checking that. So we do this to a layer. The first layer is the automated check that removes around 80 to 90% of the vulnerabilities, and that is quite pretty standard. There is no I think no tool in the industry which does it 100%, specifically because Web3 is a very new industry. Secondly, the higher set of auditors, they look into that, so that's the second layer of check. And finally, we have wardens on our side, again adding another layer of incentivization, where we pay for each bug they report. We try to incentivize them. So the entire structure is set in a way that there is more incentivization for the hackers to put in efforts. And yeah, that's the problem we are trying to solve. Of course, a lot of things in the pipeline, but yeah, about Detect Box, that is the main issue that we are trying to address.
Okay. And normally, I guess as students and building something on top of blockchain and having that as a startup is a bit tricky, and not everyone is going for that. Like you can see a lot of hackathons that are based out of Web3, but students generally have the tendency to build a product that lives till the hackathon and don't work further on that. So how
Yeah.
did your blockchain saga started? And and the internet has a lot of resources, but where did you start learning, and you would suggest people to learn as well?
So my journey was kind of quite pretty strange, because like in the first year itself, so I'll trace my journey back from JE. So after JE, I think 6 months was not really productive from my side, because I wasn't really finding something that will some difficulty that will cause stress to my mind, or anything that will make me think out of the box. So I was thinking, what next? Because most of the JE students, like I prepared from Kota, so that was for 2 years it was like the end goal which we have. So once we achieve that, it's like what next? So that was a, and specifically we had online sessions, so online classes for the first 1.5 years. And there was pretty less interaction with seniors as well. So I was exploring a lot. First 6 months of course blowed up on my face. So after that I tried trading. Even started a YouTube channel. You can check out, it's still there, Hustlers Den. So I and my friends started out and thinking that a source of passive income, when you read all these books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, you think of having something apart from just college. So I did that. Went into trading, I investing, all those things I tried out. And at the end of the like 1 year, I felt that all my friends are doing coding, when I actually landed up in college for a month. So at that point of time I really doubted like whether I was in the right path or not, and I also started coding. But at the end of the day, if I backtrack my mentality, I was always trying to do something that would be out of the box. But the thing is that you cannot have a startup when you do not actually find a problem that you have to solve. So at that time I thought like, until and unless I find a big problem to solve, I will uh, code and see like where is the biggest I'll say landscape for me to operate in. So that way I tried AIML, then I went to web 2, and finally into web 3. It was through a Nigerian boot camp that was just referred to one of my friends. He said like, you invest in crypto so you can try out web 3. So it's quite hot topic at that time, I think last year February it was. So I tried it out, and specifically I think I used to enroll for a lot of boot camps, but this one stayed because in the first 2 weeks we had chess competitions. So I was very happy to play with international players. Like they and winning there was of course easier, because in India you have competitions, in more competition in everything like studies or chess. So I think there was much less competition compared to that when I played there. So that let me stick there for around 2 weeks. And when the actual boot camp started, I couldn't actually divert out of that. I was more focused and revolving around the Discord group. So I continued that, and I actually found out it's quite pretty interesting, new for me. So it was my beginning, I'll say, introduction to blockchain. So no course out of that, was a free boot camp. And after 2 months of training, I think I understood the basics of development, NFTs, tokens and all. That was quite clear. So after that we had to go back to college. So that's why I couldn't complete that. Just 2 weeks were left. So after that, the main breakthrough that came into my life, specifically in case of which made me pursue this line of a startup and all, was Polygon Fellowship. So I was a fellow, so I applied for that with very little expectation that I'll go through, because like I had only 2 or 3 months of experience. But through the interviews, it went through really well. And the one thing I really promised, that I'll try my best and use this platform to actually build something. Like fellowship is different from internship. Like internship, you are expected to do something for the company, but in fellowship, like they guide you a lot to learn a lot of things so that you actually build something. So I was very particular about that, and use that time. So instead of when the placements like intern season began, instead of sitting for the intern season, I didn't even fill the form. First of all, later though I got an intern, but the whole time I dedicated to this fellowship. So this was 2 or 3 months fellowship, and from the last week we were called to Bangalore. It was an offline session, and that was really the eye opener for me. Because what happened is, what I personally thought, that all those people who actually build startups, and in case of web 2 is kind of true, that for 30, 40 year people who have a lot of experience, they go into building startups. So I never thought that I would be the right guy to manage a team, build the team, communicate a vision to these people, raise money. So this was something I thought was out of the box, and it cannot be done by a college student. That was my belief. And specifically in my college, I don't think there is any startup who, like any founder who raised money in college, as per my knowledge, or at that time I wasn't aware of that. So that was out of the box for me. But when I came here, I actually saw that there are builders who are like 20, 25 years old. They are actually building startups. They are standing in a stage and people are listening to them, right? And what they did extra was they just took a risk. They researched on a particular topic. They have very good domain expertise, but not a lot of industrial expertise they have. So that really opened my mind, and I thought like the next 2 years I will try to build a startup. I don't know what will happen, but I'll give my best. So that was the, I think, the flick that I actually started believing myself. I actually researched that what are those things which actually is needed for a startup, because the education system teaches nothing about building a startup, building a team, I say propagate any vision, communicate with, raise money, take care of taxes. Anything is not taught. So I started researching a lot at that point of time, and I was building something else for 2 months. Then I met my co-founder, Sudipan, and it was through LinkedIn. I was very active at that point of time in LinkedIn. So that was the beginning of this journey.
Okay. Like I had questions for every segment, and I guess you told a bit about everything. So
Yeah.
I will be still asking because it is important for people to know. And folks, like if you're watching the podcast video a bit long, so check out the timestamps so that you watch the segment that you feel will be the most important for you. And also, like Orko, like normally, like if we think of IITians and specifically people who are in circular branches, they tend to do competitive programming and
Yeah.
build a career from that, shifting from that sort of rat race you can think of and building totally something that is very different is something very proud worthy. Now you mentioned of the the major move and like how you started it and how the thing came inside you. But what if people, like suppose there is a kid in some remote village or some tier 3 college who wants to build something, but they don't know, like as you also mentioned, and even if we talk about myself as well, like I have the thing that I don't have the particular knowledge to deploy a product. And suppose like even if I'm building a simple clone of Netflix, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I cannot handle all the people who are using it, like things like chaos engineering and all, so my
Yeah.
app will crash. So how you did everything, like like I will be talking and we will asking more of how you build the team, the build the product. But in this segment, if
Yeah.
we just can answer, like how did you had that confidence and how did you exactly proceed with this?
Yeah, so I'll say for anyone who is typically building out of a village, or he hasn't has a lot of domain expertise. That is true for me as well. Like when I was starting off, like I had Web3 knowledge, and my co-founder had Web2 security knowledge. So I think that's where we have very complementary skill sets. So that is very important. And I think if you are building right out of college, I think what I've seen in this 1 year, you'll face a lot of difficulties, and you really need one person who will be there by your side. I think there was a time in last month only. My co-founder had put this particular thing in his status. Like everybody might leave, and specifically, like your parents might not support you in the beginning. Even you would see very prominent people who you would have believed will stick with you. They can also leave from your team. Investors won't always understand what you are trying to build, because they are not that much connected to you always. They will only see the monetary part of it, and give some decisions or ask you to follow some certain things. But I think you need to have at least one co-founder that will help you to stick around the hard times and keep on building. So coming to the question you asked, like when we started out, I think what we are currently building now is a very different thing. So when you start off, you have to understand that, like, first you have to have some competitive edge in a particular domain. So for me, like when I was building out, I knew that if I build something in logistics sector, or maybe in edtech sector, will be still possible for me to build. But rather, if you have some experience or some kind of competitive edge over others, it will be always essential. I think there was a kid in Shark Tank, 19 years old. He has like previous, his parents has experience in jewelry sector, so he was building in jewelry. So that either you have some help from your parents, or you have some edge over others. Like why won't another person just build what you have done? So you have to have some edge, right? So I think that is very important. You have to understand, like, if you, even if you're starting out of college, you need to have some, I'll say, ability to outperform others in that particular sector. So that's how you select a sector and start building out. And when you start building out, there has to be one problem. So when we thought, if there is a particular tool which will automatically audit everything, that will be a very useful thing, right? Like reduce the manual part, and just a tool will solve that. Now that was the first thought. Now of course, when we researched a lot, we understood like there are tools, there are people with 15 years of experience in that. We spoke to those people, and what we understood is because we have very less data in web3, you cannot build a very AI automated tooling in in this industry and solve everything. So the manual part has to be there. When that was clear, when then we moved, okay, now there are people with so much experience building in that, so that might not be something which will be targeting just now, because at that point of time just me and Sudipan is there, right? So what is the like odds of we being outperforming them? Then we move to other platforms, like the understanding the whole security landscape, what happens. So there are bug bounty platforms, there are auditing. So when we actually read through the platforms, understand what problem they're trying to solve, and understanding the industry, how it is actually I'll say evolving over time. So what caught our attention is when we around December, uh, we found that all these auditors have in their bio a DM for private audits on Twitter. So all these actually these hackers and auditors are very much active in Twitter. So we thought why they are asking DM for audits. When we spoke to a lot of auditors, we understood they prefer, rather than working for a firm, just as I said, not much incentivization, rather they want to work for themselves. So these clients go to their profiles, then they ask for their course, ask for the experience, and then the audit happens. So that was an eye opener for us. We understood there are so many, like thousands of auditors who are auditing on Twitter, and of course that's not the best place. You need to what does Amazon do? It will list out all the services and lets you choose the best possible option. So we thought of first of all having a marketplace where we list down these options, and they will select the best fit team for them based on the price, experience, and all. So that is the thing, like we have to when we speak to a lot of people, like if you see, for us it was when we do auditing, we need clients, we need auditors. When we speak to a lot of these auditors and clients, we can actually pinpoint what's the problem. So that was the first problem we identified, that building a marketplace is something which is not done in the industry till now. And that is the need. When we spoke to auditors, they said, yeah, that will be great if we can have past client reviews. This when a new client, if you see from their perspective, they would want to know what was their past experience with a particular client. If there was a good review from a client, it will be more beneficial for them. So that was a review feedback mechanism system was in place. Then when we spoke a lot, we understood there is a communication gap which exists between these two parties. Then we started building this workflow thing. After discovery, then workflow, that was the thing. Now when we are working for now 6-7 months into this particular problem, we have actually identified a much bigger problem, and we are slowly and slowly allocating resources. We can build a tech moat in our business as well. So with time, I think when you understand who are those people who are influencing and talk to them and get insights from them, and that will be the best thing you can do to actually streamline and understand what you are actually going to build and whether people will pay for that. So that I think that will be the way for that. For anybody who is starting out, you can think anything you are starting. Let's say if you are building any, I think a very simple thing, you can be a tea shop, maybe the MBA chai wala, right? So if you are building a tea shop, why will people pay you rather than going for a competitor? Something has to be different, right? Other than that, there is, if there is no innovation, it's not a startup. Actually, this is traditional business. So that has to be a thing. First, you have to be a competitive edge. You have to talk to the customers who will actually pay for that. If you are, like for us, aggregator model, the person who is doing that, whether that person will be happy to come to your platform, that is very important. So identifying a problem and building a solution around that is, I think, the best possible way to go about it.
Okay, so the thing is basically find the actual problem, not a problem that is sort of है तो है, solve करने से होगा नहीं तो नहीं होगा वाला. Actual
Hmm.
problem ढूंढो, have a competitive edge. इसमें एक और चीज which people a lot of time have, that is मेरे पास idea है, but अगर मैं किसी से share कर देता हूँ तो शायद idea चोरी हो जाएगा. That is one of the most common doubt जो काफी लोगों को रहता है. And as you also mentioned कि you met your co-founder over a social media platform, so how did you had that feeling of trust, या फिर how did it begin? Because I guess this is a real problem, right? Like ये लोग idea मेरा चोरी कर लेंगे. So how
Yeah, yeah.
to
I think this is a very, very, I think, a common notion that if I share something, so I think it like this, and I think a lot of people have said it over YouTube and so as well. Like if it's your idea, and if you say to somebody, and if he replicates that faster than you, better than you, then it was not actually your idea at all. And I think in startup industry in India, like there are so many ideas of a startup. So it's all about execution, what I believe. So even if like if I say, like, let's say I disclose all the things I'm building to you, but you never know like what is my roadmap. So if you are building something, of course, if you have more clarity on that, you have a lot of things in pipeline, right? So this is the first product, you will launch a v2 version, like better that, launch more with more features. There has to be things ongoing. It's not a static product that this is the end goal that I want to service to the customers. As you do that, I believe that if you have started it and you had identified it better, I think over time you should have the competitive edge over the person who is actually copying. And specifically if you talk about web3, is very common, like the code base is not hidden. All the repositories are open source, and actually there has been cases where the people has particularly forked the, let's say, Uniswap was there before PancakeSwap, and they had actually forked that particular repo and did the exact same thing with a little bit of tweaks, and both of them are running very fine. But I think specifically I think it's all about execution. If you and you have to share with people, because if you not, if you think that this is my idea and this is will be the next $1 billion idea and I'm not sharing with anybody, it might be that you are missing out on a very basic thing, which might have been be very visible if you had shared with somebody else. So I think that has to change.
Yeah, and like जैसे when we are brainstorming, अपने को लगता है जो प्रॉब्लम हम सोच रहे हैं that is काफी
That is
बड़ा प्रॉब्लम, but बात करने के बाद it is like यार ये तो ऑलरेडी सॉल्यूशन एग्जिस्ट करता है. And
hmm,
so and again एक और बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है like building the team, right? Like finding the right people, having the right mindset who are willing to do with you. And I also agree with one of your things that you recently said, like said right now, that is we can follow a person till the time we know his past step, but हम उसका future नहीं पता कर सकते. So it is fine to share ideas as well. But
yeah,
ये टीम के बारे में, like when people know about the vision, because people come along with you when they are sure about कि जो आप देख रहे हो इन फ्यूचर उनका विजन भी सिमिलर है आपके साथ.
yeah.
एंड हाउ meeting then finding those people. And also like एक और चीज कि in case like if you are hiring, so you can also mention that, so maybe some people also can apply to your startup as well.
Yeah. So I think you the previous question you asked about my co-founder. So I think he had actually reached out to me. So he saw that I was a Polygon fellow. I was building stuff in Web3. So he said like we can jump on a call and discuss. Like I have a lot of ideas around that. So I hadn't joined at all with the notion of building with him or being co-founding with him. I thought that he might have some needing some connects with the Polygon team. That was all. So I just hopped on the call, and by chance that was 2 or 3 hours long. So we discussed a lot. So later we came to know we come from the same hometown as well. So we got along well, and actually for a few months back I was checking. So I think that was the first time we conversed on LinkedIn, and the for next time we actually switched to WhatsApp. I never even communicated on LinkedIn ever. So it was, I think, based on luck. I think luck plays a very important role in case of startup. Getting our co-founder is pure luck. So I think out of like so many like billions of people on LinkedIn, to find your co-founder is a matter of luck. But I think if the more visible you are on social media, on specifically social media, I mean Twitter, LinkedIn, you increase your chances, right? Luck is all about like when you actually try out 100 things, one will work out and people will say you're lucky, but you actually tried out 100 times, right? So he must have tried out a number of times and finally got a co-founder. That might be the case, I am not sure. So that was the thing about co-founder. I think it's very important to find your right co-founder, because till now I've heard a lot of times what happens, like initially there's the same vision going on, then there is, if there's a fundamental difference in the thought process of the co-founders, it's difficult to stick on. One of my seniors even said like it's kind of your second marriage. So you
Yeah.
have to be very careful, because you if you want to take it long, like if 5 to 7 years you are staying with that person like in and out. So later you can think of separating a personal life and a professional life, but particularly now it's like day and day in and day out we are spending time. So we have to be very selective and choosy and understand that your vision actually aligns with that person. That is important. And I think building the team initially is actually very tricky, because initially you have very little things to offer, right? So you do not have a lot of money you can guarantee. So when we even started out, there is no revenue first of all for the first 6 months. You go in the ideation phase, you talk to investors, and without getting investment is also difficult, specifically in a beer market. So initially there is no finances involved. You are not from a very, you do not have a lot of industrial experience that you can say like, I if you stay with me, you'll learn a lot through that. So I think building that is tricky for us. What worked out was, specifically is, let's say, the core team we have, like we have a developer lead, which I communicated. It was also a very random story. So when I was building the previous startup, right? So what happened was, like, when I was building my previous startup, so it was something around incentivizing the influencers by building NFTs and all. So that was the basic concept. So I had reached out to him because he's quite, again, very active on LinkedIn, right? He had 10K followers. So I thought of, instead of like directly going for Bollywood stars, let's start with the LinkedIn influencers and build a platform for them. So I had reached out to him, and we met in around 1 month, 2 or 3 months before we actually started building Ansnal. So that was the first connection. I saw his profile and said, like, you look like a very, like, he's in second year now, right? So like, you are quite active on LinkedIn, you have very good social following. So I would like to invite you and be as one of the first influencer in our platform. You can check that out. And then we had a physical meet, and he liked the idea. Later I stopped working on that and was building that. He was in my contact list. So when I first said, like, I need a developer to lead the team, I was taking part of the product side. He's a CEO, so he's taking part of the marketing operations and all. That was the initial structure. So I even didn't reach out to him. So seeing my status, he had replied to me, and that's how he got in the team. I think if you narrow down to the core team that was formed, it was literally being active on social media, like platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter. So that was a core. That way we build the team, and over time, I think what helped was, again, network plays a very important role. So for us, like, because I was in a Polygon fellowship, I was in close connects to the devfolio team, those who manage the grants thing. So when I approached to them, like, we have an idea, and I think we need to expand our team. So if you could help us in any way. So they helped a lot. They gave a grant. So that was a good lump sum amount to start with. So that helped us build the team around that. We got a few developers. Again, how can you hire? Initially, I think hiring happens from your inner circle. Let's say I went to my friends who were looking for internships. So, like, if you want to join as a developer, you can come in. Anybody who is wanting to be, in community management or marketing, that's how we form the team. Rajdeep used his own connections, and he was building a, kind of open source community. So there we got a lot of people. And so I think the initial team is always better to form people whom and they will understand what you believe. And that is actually quite tricky to and make them understand, like, we will be the company will stands out, though we do not have much of industrial experience. But yeah, so that was quite tricky to make them believe that we can do it. And initially, when the results coming, I think they will stick on. But yeah, I think the team has also changed a lot when we started back in December to now. uh, it has grown as well a bit. And I think, yeah, so the main thing you can keep in mind is being active on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter. Try to build a brand, like if you go to my profile, you understand, like, build something around Web3 security, right? So if you are interested in getting an internship, you can randomly DM people as well, I want an internship. That is also a good way to get that thing. And a network is also plays a very important role. That's what I understood.
Okay, and that is quite nice. And also, just so all your people who are working in your team, are they IITians or they're not
No, no, no.
IITians?
Two or three people. I think
Okay,
except I and Sudipan, there is one other guy is an IT.
okay. And Sudiban is from your college as well.
ITBHU.
ITBHU. Okay, okay. So it's totally random meetup and everything. Nice, nice,
Totally
nice. Really.
random.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so अब तक अपने हमने ये डिस्कस कर लिया, like the ideation phase, idea share करो, कैसे problem ढूंढना है. उसके बाद we came on the building the team वाला चीज. And now एक बार सब कुछ हो जाए, now let's discuss on how to build the product. Like ultimately that is something that works, right? Like अपने को product दिखाना है, फिर भी अपने को पैसा वगैरह जो भी आता है उसके ऊपर ही आता है. So
हाँ,
how did you start building that? And like जैसे क्या होता है कि like what all things you kept in your mind, because whenever we are building a product, अगर हम पहली चीज़ों को बहुत ओवर कॉम्प्लिकेट कर दें, लाइक एज आई
हम्म,
मेंशन, लाइक अगर मैं एक लोकल नेटफ्लिक्स बना रहा हूँ एंड मैं पहले ये सोच लूँ कि मैं like at a single point of time how I will be handling 1 crore users, तो मेरा पहली जो concept है that will go towards utilization of CPUs and parallel processing उस पे. But अपना main product is not that. अपना main product is showing people what they want. So how did you and how people should design this system on what they're building and how you chose building that, and if you don't mind of sharing on what all tech stacks you chose while building the product. Yeah.
So
Also,
I'll say, yeah, yeah,
या
yeah.
एक और चीज ताकि लाइक काफी टाइम ये लोग बोलते हैं कि whenever you have an idea, पहले लोगो बनाओ, वेबसाइट बनाओ, फिर जो करना है करो. So also do you agree on that or not? Yeah.
I think logo was previously built and the name was also decided when I joined, so won't comment on that. But yeah, I think our name like Ansnal is quite a out of the box name. It won't something which will come across very often. But it has a deep meaning to that. Like it's like disentangling something. So you disentangle the web. So the main thing, because we are in security, we're trying to solve all this problem out of the box. So that was the main concept around Ansnal. So I think when you build the MVP, I think the best possible way to start off is when you try to find. So as you said, like build the logo, build the website, but first of all, we have to know that whether this website will be useful, right? So before we started actually building the website full on, what we did was we made a landing page. So at that point of time, like Sudipan is a good designer, and I come from a developer background. So what we did is we build just the pamphlet, kind of a pamphlet, you can believe, like what's the landing page. There is no operations, no app behind that. A landing page where we say that this is the services we provide, this is the problem we're trying to solve. And there was just two form links, right? So what we tried to do in back in December, before actually building the team, before anything else, we used to start pitching investors at that point of time without any product build, just to understand that whether it will actually solve a cause. So let's say we are connecting clients with auditors, right? That is the basic problem we're trying to solve initially. Now one way is build everything, build with have those back end setup, front end setup with the all app build, and then you start seeing whether people are interested in being in the platform. Another way we can think of is the cost effective way is we use just type from forms and see whether clients are actually wanting to visit your profile, whether auditors are trying to visit your profile, and whether investors would like the idea. So we started pitching that. And when so the same thing we did with the previous versions. So when we had the tools, we did the same landing page with the basic functionality, the basic things we're trying to solve, we list down. Similarly with the bounty platforms, the competitor approach, we used to generally what we had is landing page and a pitch deck. That was the all we built. So that was the way we started approaching customers, we approaching the clients, approaching the investors, and understanding whether they will actually pay for that, whether investors are actually interested in the idea. When we did that for the first two products, that failed, we understand that we are not the person to go about that. So that way we saved a lot of money. If we had built the whole product, we had built everything top to bottom, and then it would have failed, I think would have lost a lot of money, right? What we did, we understood, let's see whether people are actually interested in that. When this initial thing got cracked, I think when we got the grant, we understood people like I won't say investors, but actually industry people are backing our problem. So Polygon backed us, ETH India backed us. So when we understood this is in the right track, when we spoke to auditors, when we understood, yeah, they are filling the form, we got around 20 to 30 applications. When that was done, and we even reached out to clients whether you'd be happy to pay a particular sum of money through us. When that was all solved, then we started building the team, then we started building the MVP, because then it made sense. And even during the whole process of building the MVP, we kept on taking feedbacks from people, like even anything we would love to include. Let's say uh, review system. So if you say a review system for auditors, whether it is important, I'll say to the auditors whether you think it is important or not before actually incorporating in the product. So as a team, the roles are very well defined. So Rajdeep takes care of the whole development work, the setup of the infra thing. We have 3 developers who actually work on that. So that thing we do not look into, we just check the progress, whether it's happening on point, the deadlines we have set for ourselves, whether that is met. then it's okay. We are not going into that. I personally look after the product, that which way, which are the features that should be listed, which are the functions, and which are the most important things for the clients and the auditors that should be in a platform. That is the thing I look into. But because it's a very early stage startup, I think both the founders actually, the CPO CEO role is still merged. I say I'll also look into the business operations outreach part, he also looks into the product. So we both work together still now. But I think this clear demarcation is there, that this team will look into this, outreach part will be taken by this. There's a social media guy who posts like hacks, the web3 security stuff on Twitter, and that has helped us to cross 12K in the last 3-4 months as well. So that is very important. And as you said, the way MVP should be built, if you spend anything, so I didn't spend anything from my pocket. That is one thing I'm very clear. So when my parents say like, why you're doing this, I say I have not taken anything from you, I won't take as well. I think the best possible way to start off is try to find the most cost effective way to start with, and see whether people will pay for that, and then build for that.
And that is really good. And one thing that you mentioned that is, struck in my head, that is, as you mentioned, you had the first landing page and the page deck, then you went to investors who,
Yeah.
just for the survey part. So how did you find them, and like, how was it exactly?
Yeah. So I think the first pitch in November, there was a first VC firm we pitched. That was a product on Bounty platform. At that point of time, I think a lot of things has changed. So there's, I think, uh, coming to the way we found that was through, you can search like top VC firms, like venture capital firms who invest in Web3. If you're looking for angels, you have very cool platforms like Signal, where you get the list of investors who are into Web3. You can go to LinkedIn and see who are early stage investors. So I think LinkedIn is one of the places. Signal is a very good platform. If you search, you'll find a lot of people posting on LinkedIn with a database of thousands of investors. So you can do that as well. Google, if you just search it out, like accelerator programs, incubator programs, venture capitalists who are putting money in Web3, you can find that directly to search. I think for finding that is not a big of an issue. But initially approaching it is, like when we see now and we think, how did we have the guts to even go in that particular time. I think the first pitch we did, we didn't have the landing page as well, no Figma designs, nothing. We just made the I'll say basic caricature of the thing on pitch deck, and we just pitched that this is the thing happening. And actually we went through the first two rounds as well. And when we had planned to come to Bangalore at that point of time, 2 or 3 weeks back. So later, so when we came to Bangalore, we had an offline pitch as well. It all went smoothly, and I think at last there were some issues. They have an investment thesis in which they invest that didn't work through. Otherwise, we would have got investment back in December, and maybe we're building a completely different product. So I think that is very important. But to be honest, like pitch deck is very important thing. I've heard from a lot of people in pre-seed, when you do not have revenue, we do not have customers, only thing you can actually sell to the investor is your storyline. Why you to be the person to go in that market. If you have a good TAM, like the target
True.
market, how big is the target market? Yeah, total addressable market. So how big is that? So I think that is also helps. But in Web3, the market is not that big, so it's a evolving market. You cannot like define the TAM in a particular way. So the most important thing is the storyline. The team you have, founding team, they literally bet on the founding team. They know that you will make a lot of iterations on the way, but they put money believing that these are the 2 or 3 guys I am betting on, and if I'm actually investing rather on them rather than the product, because that will keep on changing, because you're in pre-seed, right? So the team is important. Their background makes sense if it's good. We are from IIT. I believe that IIT really helps you getting the first check. So that is of course useful. And apart from that is how you present things. So that's the thing for pre-seed.
Yeah, and things are
Yeah.
tough. Like, even I would say, like, IT and tech just helped you, but you also did a lot of work on your own. Then it helped. It is not
Yeah.
case you just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the flow is like, the way it goes on is first your the founders grilling happens. So what background are you in? So let's say if you are from non-tech background, you're building in something in tech, they would expect some I'll say some of any of the founders to be good in tech, right? Otherwise, how can you build a software product? So basically this founders grilling is the first round. Then they go into the product, then they go into the market research and the computer analysis. Then, so I think the first round is easy. When you're IITian, The first round is easy, but the initial grilling is okay. They have what does IITN actually prove? The IITN proves like you're a disciplined person. You have put in hours of effort into accomplishing something which is regarded as very difficult in the society. So that gives the investors, I think, a sense of I think it helps them to understand that they will stick on to the problem. They will not leave it midway. And I think like if they find any difficulty, they will be managed to go through that. So that is the, I think, being an IITian helps you to get through the first layer of check, but of course there's a lot of else thing happening.
Yeah. Like, and
Yeah.
as you mentioned, you did for the 3 rounds in December, when at the last you got, cancelled. But जो लोग काफी टाइम बोलते हैं ना कि आईआईटी ने इसलिए फंडिंग मिल गया, दैट इज ऑल्सो नॉट ट्रू यार. प्रोडक्ट भी रहना चाहिए. हवा में लोग पैसे नहीं उड़ाते अपना, है ना? Because so, yeah, so that is also a thing. And so like IIT and tax ultimately helps. And but yeah, like, and at least it also helped you, I guess, to found your co-founder as well, because that also helped the connect. But apart from that, this is what being an IITian does, but not nothing more than that, I would say. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't. I'll say a couple of points. First is, of course, the first round. As I said, initial impression is you are a hard working guy, disciplined guy. You will make it for sure. And like they try to maximize the chances of return, right? So if you have to bet on two guys, one who actually cleared a very difficult competitive exam and one who didn't, is a natural instinct to go with the person who cleared. But that is not the end goal. People who have do not have an IIT and they have also built very remarkable startups. So but initially that is a kind of bias you can capitalize on. But another thing that it actually gives a very strong network. So in case of Guwahati, like we are like 24 25 years back, like it was started in 1994. But in case of BHU, like my co-founder comes from BHU, we have seen like the alumni network is very strong. So if you actually want to get funding, right, or good connections, people who are building startups want to connect with them, that becomes very easy. So it actually provides you a very strong network where you can interact with people. You will always find people like I think there's a guy who is building in web3 security in ITBC. We get guidance from them. There's a lot of angel investors because it's a 100 years plus old college, so you get the benefit of that.
Okay. And काफी बार आपने Polygon का mention किया. And Polygon, for people who don't know, like, it is Indian startup that is, I guess, the most valued Indian startup in Web3 space. And they have around a market cap of $14 billion. That a hell lot of money. And काफी लोग use करते हैं Polygon, and it's pretty popular. If you are into blockchain, I'm sure आपने सुना होगा Matic या फिर Polygon, because that is how they rebranded themselves. So how was it for you? And like आपने बोला Polygon fellowship, so is it the 8th India fellowship that you're talking about, or is it something different?
No, Polygon Fellowship, I think this time they have rebranded again to as Nanwal Fellowship, and they're approaching it in a different way. Like Sandeep Nanwal is the founder of Polygon. So that's a different way they're doing it for now, for this year. And last year it was the first edition of the Polygon Fellowship. So it was like they had two tracks. One is a beginner track, one is a builder's track. In the builder's track, they're expected to have more expertise, more domain expertise in Web3, previous building experience. And on a beginner track is like you have very strong Web2 fundamentals and you are interested to jump into Web3. So like I was very fortunate to be part of that because around like 10,000 people applied for that, and finally they selected 25 each. So there was a mainly application form, then interview rounds went on for that, and they gave us a grant as well. So it's quite amazing, like the initiative from like, last year it was still bull run going on, so they invested a lot. This time that might be one of the factors that made them decide not to go ahead with that. But I think that inspired a lot of people to get into Web3, specifically for the beginner track. They do not expect any previous Web3 expertise. So I had applied for the beginners track, and the way it went is, first of all, we had 6 weeks of planned structure, like first about NFTs, then DeFi, metaverse, all those things that actually exist in the Web3 space. That was the materials were provided, and we had to submit weekly assignments. So mainly the concept of weekly assignments is that you will be dedicating at least 6 to 7. They said 3 to 4 hours, but that would have actually took 10 hours a day. So that's why I left my intern preparation as well, because it was difficult to manage both of it at one point of time. So mostly to get an idea about how the industry works, what are the fields you can explore in Web3. And after this 6 months of work, you are supposed to build a capstone project, which they will help you to build onto a startup. So that's how I met another person from the fellowship. We started building a decentralized version of Dream 11. That was our idea at first. So so that was a good initiative, because after this thing they brought us a week offline, and there was a demo day organized. So that was they gave us a feel of how it is to build a product, helped us in product building, understanding the market in that 2 or 3 weeks, where in which we are building the capstone project. That was a good experience to build real world new stuff in Web3, and finally pitch it in front of very renowned investors in Bangalore. So that was a good experience for us. And yeah, so I'll say the main thing Polygon wanted to do through the beginners as well as builders track is actually um, not people who just build it for their resume, but actually build solve real world use cases. But sadly that didn't happen, because most of them didn't continue it, or rather they again went into building phase. But I think, yeah, still I think two or three builders are actually building startups, and that was a good platform. I think if I was not into Polygon fellowship, I wouldn't have that confidence to actually jump into building a startup. So I think it was really helpful for me. And such if such initiatives are brought in several sectors, it can be brought in, right? In Web3 they have done it. You can do that in fintech as well. If you actually give a grant, teach them people, they also would feel like, I personally felt like they have given me lakhs of rupees just to learn this thing, then I should actually do something with, right? So they wanted to build something, so why should I go for an intern and do what people are doing? At least try something out of the box and solve some problem. I think that comes in your mind. I think if that is done in India, I think a lot of startups will come in, because initial money is something will motivate them to build more amazing stuff.
Okay, and like as you also mentioned, ki Polygon also helped you in forming your team, right? And apart from that, like how else are the ways they are helping you in the process?
No,
Like
but
are
like
they
this
providing
team was
you?
different. I say like that like startup. It was after the fellowship. I was building a startup with another fellow of Polygon. But after that, once I was building this, and like Sudipan, we got into this Web3 security thing. At one point of time, along with college, it was difficult to continue. So I had to choose the more, I'll say, uh, where I thought would have more future. So I started building in with Ansnal. So I say Polygon. Then I'll say after September we didn't have much interaction with them, but luckily like last week we again got back in touch with them. So there is a Polygon village which provides grants to Web3 startups. So they give around 10,000 rupees grants to budding in Indian, or even I think outside startups as well. So we are in talks with them to launch our like vouchers of auditing. So let's say what happens is, once you build the MVP in Web3, you need to get your auditing done. So we are trying to package that service together, so that after any person who gets the grant from Polygon for building, they can directly get some grants from us and pay us some money as well, to get that audited and directly go for launch. So we are in close talks. I think today only we'll announce that as well. So Polygon in itself is a quite a supporting ecosystem. I think they have literally like for the last year, uh, thousands of hackathons they have given, like bounties, prizes, and attracted a lot of Web 2 builders to build into Web 3. So I think for Web 3, Polygon has done really amazing job, specifically in India. So yeah, so quite interesting.
So Polygon is helping you in a lot of ways than because you kept in touch with them post the fellowship period as well. Now, as
Yeah.
you mentioned that you were the only one in IIT Guwahati to raise a funding. So how does that work? And
So
if you
yeah,
don't mind,
we haven't raised it yet. So
okay,
that is one thing. So basically, what we have done till now, like we got grants from ETH India, as I said. We got grants from Starknet. So they are building some amazing solutions in Zk. So that from Starknet, then we are part of this Antler Fellowship. So Antler is a global VC which has a good portfolio in Web3. They invest specifically into they invest in a lot of things, but they have a good portfolio in Web3 as well. So we applied for this fellowship. We were the first startups we that got selected in the fellowship. So in that they give a good grant to build the MVP, get the onboard the first users, and when they are in the investable stage, they put in the first institutional check. So yeah, so currently we got the grant, we have built the MVP, we got the first two clients we have already cracked. The second one started just yesterday, the work, and we are trying to close around like two or three more clients this month. So we are in close talks with them to raise the first checks to see when is the right time for them. I think what happened is like based on the product we have already built and the pipeline we have for this particular product, we could have raised even now, but actually we are trying to raise a bigger round because we have found out like a technical working on a tech product to solve a bigger problem. So we had a meet with Nitin. So he is like the partner of Antler. He takes care of whether any Web3 startups they invest in. So he's a global lead for that. We had a call day before yesterday. So he suggested like instead of rushing through that for this check now, if you wait for a month and have some clarity on that, maybe we can go for a bigger round. So we are in close talks with them, also with other a few investors. So let's see how it goes. So yeah, most probably in 1 or 2 months, that will all these things will clear out and we'll raise the first round.
I hope you, all the best, and I hope you also become, first one from your college to be raising ground and be, one of the rock stars of Indian ecosystem. Okay, so as you mentioned that you are also planning, for dropping out from IIT Guwahati because of the problems. Because I am pretty sure, like, because the academic load that I also had in my days in IIT Rourkela, I also काफी बार मैंने सोचा था कि इलेक्ट्रिकल नहीं हो रहा मेरे से. So I
Hmm.
want to just drop it. Electrical is legit tough, and professors are also not that supporting. तो मेरे दिमाग में आता था. And now also that same, like you're also planning to drop out. So and like being a student, एक तो अपने पास मान लो knowledge कम रहता है because of the less experience we have apart from this academic load. So how did you manage everything ultimately? Like, was it only prioritizing things, or was it something more?
I think it is quite important to understand like the first problem that you face as a student in any of the top IITs or NITs, as far as I spoke to all of my friends and understand the whole paradigm of this education system, is it's really difficult to do anything out of the box. So first of all, before IIT last year, I decided to go for a foreign exchange program in Japan. Now the thing is that there's a process set up for that, right? And the thing is nobody else before had applied for the whole process. So instead of like paying all the fees, everything, registration was done, but still in the last moment we couldn't go just for a simple thing which I felt that could be solved by two phone calls. Now in the thing is that because nobody is actually trying out of the box things, the person who is actually going for the first time, he faces a lot of problem. Specifically that's the reason like from starting from that exchange program, I had very bitter experiences with my college till now, I'd be very honest. And specifically for the teachers and all, specifically electrical branch is quite difficult. The teachers are not supportive. In last semester we had a prof who actually is a very intelligent guy. He, instead of imposing 80% or 90% attendance outright, he said if you come to classes 95% of the times, you'll get 20%, 20 marks bonus. Now naturally the student mindset is everybody will go then regularly, right? So instead of imposing it directly, he indirectly made us go to the classes. And what is actually saddening to see is nobody actually listens to the classes. So actually it's a total waste of time. So for me, I actually identified that in online, to be honest, I put in very little effort, still I got a good CPI. So I understood like if I keep on mugging those things up throughout my SEMs, or focusing a lot of things what is actually taught, then it's very difficult to do something out of the box. So I kept a time that I understood like even if I dedicate around 1 or 2 weeks before the exams, I actually get good grades, not extraordinary grades like 9 plus CPI, but I have 8 plus CPI till now. So I think if you get pretty above average grades in like 1 or 2 weeks, the rest of the time is literally time waste. So I used to dedicate like 100% of my time apart from classes into this startup for from like last August or September. So that was very clear from my side. Like I wanted to maintain a particular CPA just for my parents, because they said like at least you complete the degree, after that I'm not interested in anything. So I think that's what I did. I prioritized more on the startup. So just before the exams, 1 or 2 weeks I put in like without sleeping, maybe you have to go on a stretch of 7 days, and that helps to get a pretty decent grade. So I think instead of focusing much on that, getting best grades, I prioritize my startup. So that's how I managed this whole college thing. And that now the thing is that there's a point that comes, now you have to take the call. Right now what happens is, if I go back to college, uh, is a whole environment is not quite startup friendly, to be honest. Like, because I'm in third year now, the placement season will begin. Now I'm not sitting for my placement, so now every news and every discussion is around CPI, or the company who's visiting the day one who got placed and all. Now I don't literally, I don't give a fuck about that. But the thing is, if you stay in an environment where, like, the most of the news are, I say 100% of the thing revolves around the particular thing, comes a time when you start actually doubting whether you are the, like, why are you doing something that's so different from them, or whether you are in the right track. That is one of the things. And I particularly believe now, like, the stage has come, like, if I go back, the things will be slowed down as a lot. If I, as a founder, do not give 100% efforts to the startup, it is in a stage where we have at least gone through the 0 to 1 stage. Now to 1 to 10, you have to have full-time members. It's quite remarkable that we pulled it off without any full-time people. Still now all of them are college students, second year, third year, at max fourth year. So as a founder, you have to take the initiative. I think I have no particular inclination, or I say, no such emotional connection with IITs. I never, from my, like, from the quota thing also. My father was more interested, like, he will get into IITs and all. But for me, it was like, it was a, it's kind of a challenge. So I think that was the best possible thing I could have done. So I just went for that. So nothing emotional attached to that. So I, also, when you raise money, the investors also have some expectation, and they will legally put you down that you have to go full time. So that is another thing. So most probably, as we raise, we have to drop out for that. No problem with that. But yeah, if you talk about people building in college, I think you have to prioritize. Everybody has 24 hours, and you cannot manage like coding, CP, if you do that as well, if you are engaged in a lot of clubs, also if you are building a startups, and also maintaining a CPA. So everything is not possible. So prioritizing is, of course, a very important thing.
Yeah, and like when you said, the electrical thing and this attendance issues with the leaves issues, I had this us moment, like that they say, us for us.
Yeah.
Because I also had one thing, like I wanted to go to Poland. I had a full fellowship for around 2 months, but only because of the leave thing, I was not able to go and also because they required a lot of documents. And I
Yeah.
guess in US or Europe, the students get easily those. But in India, at least if you speak of government college, it takes a huge amount of time to get. So that was a major barrier, and yeah, I'm happy that I graduated. Yeah. So now, moving forward, like like a lot of people who must be trying out new things, and you have been someone who has started something of your own, is in talks of getting a funding, and in the process, I guess you have made some mistakes and also have got some solutions. So what will be your advice to someone who is just starting out?
I think, yeah, if you start something new, there will be situations where you will make mistakes. For me as well, if I reflect back, I'll find a lot of mistakes I made in this journey. But I won't change anything for that or trade off, because I learned a lot of things through that. But generally, one of the mistakes which people tend to make is very generalized case, not about any startup or something. Specifically in age group of 20s, people think like what I think is actually the best thing possible. Now that problem stays with me as well. Now if I say that this is the thing I'm trying to do, most probably my parents will say just the opposite thing, right? And there are times we collide on differences. And actually what I understood is, a lot of times we are true, we are actually in the right track, but there are actually things which people with experience can detect better, or decide better on that. So I think keeping an open mind is very important. Keeping updated about the new things is very important, and having a good mentor or person to look up to is also very important in the long run. Because I personally think there are much better people than me in my startup. If I can get a funding, if I can build a startup, of course there are more people in my, even in my college, who can do that. But they get I'll say, revolve around very petty stuff, or do not think that big, and end up doing following the crowd, and that prevents them from achieving something else. So I have friends who talk about building a startup. From the time when I actually started up, they also had some similar views. But I think actually putting in the efforts is actually important. Just like as I said, like idea is nothing, like execution is the main thing. Similarly, if you actually want to build something, you have to put in efforts, you have to prioritize it over everything else. And you will have instances where people will say you cannot build that. Everybody of us will have gone through that particular time, that if you think out of the box, people will say, "Well, how can you do that?" Or you won't believe in that, but you have to stick in through beliefs and get through the difficult part. And I think when the results come in, it's very easy for people to support and be supportive of you. But when the things are not going in your direction, I think being consistent and always being present is the thing which separates from others. So even we have days where, like in startups, it's like very it's a crest and trough. So one day is like the peak of the moment, we get clients, we think everything is going on lines, we have crack a lot of partnerships, and the next day we are totally demoralized, or something happens very differently, which makes us think, even doubt the existence of the startup. So as a founder, the thing we understand is we cannot go to somebody and complain, which is very easy for an employee. So anybody who is, let's say, working as an employee, is very easy to say, I'll leave this job and go to somebody else applies somewhere else. But as a founder, like whom can you go up to? Like you are answerable to the people who are working with you, you're answerable to the customers, you're answerable to even the investors. So everybody will attack you if everything goes wrong, and you have to find a solution at that point of time. So I think you have there are days where you might feel quitting, or I say not that well. But I think is actually those points you are tested, and you have to find the solution yourself. That's why I said, like the founder bond is very important, because that time, when such instances come, I know like Sudipan will support me, and for him it's like I'll support him. So in that particular period, we have to find the best possible move on the chessboard and move forward. So that's how we approach life.
ओके एंड दैट्स अ बिग एडवाइस बिकॉज़ ये होता है कि जब आप अचीव नहीं करते हो लोग बोलते हैं यार तेरे से नहीं हो पाएगा, गलत कर रहा होगा भाई मतलब एंड जब व्हेन यू गेट द फंडिंग एज़ यू आर सेइंग एंड या फिर व्हेन यू आर गेटिंग गुड क्लाइंट्स तब लोग आ जाएँगे कि हाँ भाई बहुत सही मतलब मेरे को भी ले ले साथ में एंड द
Yeah.
थिंग चेंजेस सो अपने को काफ़ी लाइक हार्ड होना होगा एंड थिंग्स टू बी रिस्क टेकर्स बेसिकली विद हैविंग द थिंग ऑफ कि हार्ड वर्किंग भी ऐसा नहीं होगा कि रिस्क ले लिए कुछ कर नहीं रहे. So,
Yeah.
so ultimately, thanks a lot. This has been, I guess, my longest podcast, and I learned a lot in the process. And ultimately, you are building a startup. जैसे कंपनी ऐसा बनाओगे जिसमें 4 लोग काम कर पाए, and you are doing that. So that is really really good. So I tried to ask almost everything what came into my mind, and I have noted down everything. But there might be something that there is a chance that I have missed out. So if there is any final piece of advice or final piece of things that you want to mention, you can just do that, like any pointer that you want to give to whoever is watching you at the end, or if you want to people to connect with you, what is the best platform they can connect, like is it LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram, or what's that? Yeah.
So like any final thoughts, like people I think a lot of people in the first year have that ambition, where they believe in themselves and always have the dream that build the next big startup. A few of my even this year juniors came to me and said, like, you are building this stuff, I also want to be a startup. But the thing is, the friend circle actually determines that where you actually head in your life. So I think when I started out initially, I had trader friends, so I was in more into trading. Then I had a few friends who were into ML, then I moved to ML. Then I heard about a few friends who were into coding clubs and all, then I moved to coding. I think it's people say like you are average of the five people you spend time with, and it's absolutely true. I think every time I have in my life, I've seen that you are like highly, maybe 90% of the time, doing what your friends are doing. So in college specifically, anybody who is listening to this, I think you have to make you choose your friends very wisely, because that will actually determine your next 4 years, and after this 4 years, how we actually pick off after the college ends, right? So that is one thing. Choose your friends very wisely. And I'll say, like anybody who is trying to get into this startup ecosystem, uh, I'd say you have to sacrifice a lot, to be honest. Like when I see my friends, there are people who are like partying or might be going out with friends, chilling out. if you think like that will be the case when you start up, you can see these in Instagram influencers, they show different kinds of lifestyle, but to be honest, when you're starting out, there are a lot of hardships, and there are like 99% of the chances that you will fail. Statistically, that is proven. So you have to take the bet, and initially there will be times when you will see like people posting very cool stories, and you, I do not have anything to post. Rather, you have you are escaping this 9 to 5 job to actually work full time. Actually 24 hours you are thinking about something. Even after, I believe, like even we are in a stage, like even after our best efforts, it might be that we fail, right? There's always a risk of that. It's just that when is the time, and whether we can get through that. 0 to 1 stage is of course one of the most difficult stage, but scaling that is a different challenge in itself. So I think you have to sacrifice a lot if you are specifically trying this, and you cannot compare with friends and see like how cool is their lifestyle is. But it's just that if you get through that and build a good startup, your life will be much cooler than them. So initially that's the cost you have to bear. So yeah, that's the parting lines. And as you said, like anybody who wants to connect with me, I am quite active on Twitter and LinkedIn. They can reach out to me. Specifically, I'm active more on Twitter because like Web3 is kind of I'd say is booms with the developers, auditors. It's like more interactive, and it's more information in Twitter. And then LinkedIn is more about if you want to find investors or get a job. I think that's a better platform to for what we are aiming. Twitter is a better platform. So yeah, you can connect either ways. Happy to help.
Okay, thanks a lot, Orko, for the entire podcast, and I really learned a lot. This is the first time talking to a tech founder, and specifically in blockchain domain. And so ultimately FOMO feel नहीं करना है. So people who are watching, अपने को अपना focus रखना है, काम करते रहना है. So I will be mentioning the links of Orko in the description. So do check that out. Get in touch with him. And if you are still here and watching till the end, thanks a lot for watching. You really have a lot of patience, and I hope we have more such sessions. So please let me know, guys, whom I should call next. And thanks a lot, and bye bye.